So traditionally, by looking at the trees and reading Mother Nature, it's a sense we all had. Since we've got iPhones and all this, we can check the weather, we can check this and that, we lose those senses in our bodies. We have to try to keep those alive and pass those on so that knowledge never dies. Traditionally, because we were island people, and the island was born out of the ocean. So the ocean to me is like my grandmother. This land is my mother here. The land that we live on now is my mother. So I respect both my grandmother and my mother. So this little plant here is a mistletoe. They're a host, so they stick onto a tree and they actually grow out. So they do produce berries off these plants. You can see the fruit starting to come on here. So we've got two species of these fruits growing on the island here. They're very soft and very sweet to eat, and that's how they actually grow. The mistletoe bird will eat these berries, and then within 20 minutes or so it'll drop onto another tree, and that seed will stick there and actually grow from there. So if we were hunting for possum, we look for this tree, so if it's been ravished, you can actually hunt for possum in this area because the possums like it. So you'll know that there's a possum living in this area because they like eating these little plants here. Okay, so just growing in here is your native passion fruit. So majority of all passion fruits originate from South America. This is a native one, so they don't get much bigger than that, and they're very sort of juicy, but they don't really resemble the taste of a passion fruit as well. Okay, so this is the flax lily, and these produce a purple berry. They are related to the Dianella plant, so we might see some of those as well. You can see the difference in the leaves. So this is the flax lily, flax leaf here, and like I said, these berries are edible. This big tall tree here is called bulgari in our language, and the leaves of these are used for colds and flus. So in particular in the Northern Territory a lot, they were used so you dig a hole in the sand, and these produce a really wicked thick smoke. So you put these into a fire in a hole in the sand, and when you put these in, it produces this wicked smoke, and you just lay over the top of it and let the smoke, hot smoke, engulf your body. And especially if you have a lot of phlegm on your chest, it will actually help to relieve the phlegm off your chest. Okay, these trees here aren't in fruiting season at the moment. When they do fruit, they're called a tuckaroo, and they produce lots and lots of fruit off this plant. So it actually has a yellow berry about the size of a marble. And what happens is that fruit will actually pop open, and when it opens up, there's actually seeds inside that are covered with a black covering. They have a little red bud on the end of them, so they do have a bit of poison in them. So once again, you roast these nuts, they are actually quite nice eating as well. Also fairly high in proteins as well. So a lot of these plants I've shown you so far are very high in protein. This is the garkil tree, or wattle tree, or acacia tree if you want to call it that. This is a fairly important tree in our culture. So this plant here, when it produces a long yellow flower, this is a season for us to head to the ocean side because we're going to get a lot of greenback, which is tailor fish. So these fish are migrating into our waters here. Now if we follow this tree back to the bottom of it, coming into winter, we'll find a big spider's web, look, a cocoon down the bottom of it, and it's actually full of hairy caterpillars. So when these caterpillars start hatching out, there's two signs that we're seeing here. So that means winter is about to start, summer's finishing and winter's starting, and it also tells us that the sea mullet are migrating here as well. If you get stung by this insect or caterpillar or any other insect in the bush, the anti-venom for it is actually growing on the tree here. So you'll see like finger-like seeds growing down and dangling down in bunches. So if you grab those seeds and mix it with some fresh water, it will produce a froth, and that's what we use for insect bites as well. You can't get it in your eyes because it can really irritate your eyes, but if you put enough of it into a freshwater pond, it will actually kill the fish that are in there, and the poison doesn't actually affect us. So it only affects the fish, so we can still eat the fish. We also make weapons like boomerangs out of this tree as well. Because this is one of our best trees for weaponry over here, because we're on a sand island, this is one of our best uses for trees. So the gum trees here, they do turn very brittle after time, and they break fairly easy, but these ones here last a lot longer, the wood of this tree. These are the bottlebrush tree here. So early in the morning, as these flowers get a bit bigger, they will be full of honey nectar. So you can actually eat these by just slapping it into your hand, but you want to leave the flower on the tree and get the honey off it that way. The reason we're doing that is because we can come back in for a few days and harvest honey from this plant. So if you break it off, you only get one honey hit out of it. When it dries up, the seeds turn fairly hard like this here. So these seeds are used for shellfish cooking. So yugris and other types of shellfish, because if you've got too much heat with some of our shellfish, they will actually just turn to crumble dust, and that will actually go into your shell meat. So these keep a nice heat for cooking our shellfish. This tree here, you can see all this sap. This is our gum tree or mangari. So the sap, this is actually turned hard, all right, so we can still use that for a medicine. So when it turns hard like this, if you have cuts that are weeping a lot, you crush up this dust and you sprinkle it into your cut, and that will help to dry up your cuts as well. When it's in goo form, it's also very good for cuts and things as well to put on your skin. Yeah, and it'll help to heal like a bit like a band-aid as well. So we have a few species of these trees on the island, and all the saps are used for that. Gum trees also produce sweet honey sap that comes from the tree. So majority of all trees around us here are all sugar-based sap. Which means it's sort of a lot of it's edible sap. But what happens is an insect will sting the tree, and a small bubbles or sap will actually bubble out of the leaves on these trees, and you can actually, they're called lerps, and you can actually scrape these off them, and you can make a big ball of chewing gum out of them, and you just eat the sap from that, which is very, very sweet, or a sweet nectar. So this one is fig trees. So there's actually 1,000 species of fig trees throughout the world. Majority of them produce fruit from these trees. This is a small one, so you can eat the fruits, like I said, from the tree. We also make war shields out of this tree as well, and you can also make returnable boomerangs from the roots of these trees. There is another species of these trees called the sandpaper fig that actually produce a leaf that's very, very hard, just like sandpaper. So that will actually be used to sand spears and woomeras and all different types of things down. A lot of coastal Aboriginal people will actually use shark skin. All right, because shark skin is very, very rough. So that's wrapped around a bit of wood and used as a rasp or sandpaper to sand things back with as well.